going to show you how to mix some colors. I'm going to show you the kinds of paint you're going to be using and how to get the effect that you want for this particular project. Doesn't matter if you decided to do the seal or the whale. I'm going to show you both, and then hopefully you'll have all the information you need. First thing you have to do is make sure that you have a piece of paper underneath you, since we're painting all the way to the edge. This will help keep the table a little bit cleaner. Then the second thing, make sure you write your name on the back. If you forget to write your name, it's going to be very difficult to hold it up and do it when the paper is all soggy and wet with paint. First, I'll show you the colors you're going to have to use so that you can start to envision how you want your water or your beach and water to look. So the first color I want to show you that pretty much every bucket has is purple. I also have a blue, which these are in little baby food jars, but at every table I'll put down a container that looks like this. There's also a green, a red, there's an orange, and a yellow. So those are your basic colors. I went ahead and put in a little brown. Really, this one's really good for if you wanted to have like a beach. And then there's a kind of like a baby blue, which will be perfect for using if you wanted to lighten up a color. You can mix a little bit of this with it. There's enough white in here that'll kind of lighten it. So the first thing I want to do is show you how I'm going to make a picture. I'm going to throw it down. I'm going to make a picture that kind of looks like there's a beach, and then sort of like where the water's coming in, and then just the ocean up at the top. So this is like if you were going to do a little seal and have him down at the bottom, he would kind of be laying on the beach, and then the water would look like it was behind him. And I'll also at the end show you how to get, there's a really cool splattered white paint on here, and I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is the beach, and each jar of paint will have one brush. Be really careful not to put your brush into the wrong jar, because if you do that, then it can contaminate that whole jar, and then it makes it difficult for the next kid, because especially yellow and the baby blue, if they get another color in there, a whole brush full of it, then that whole jar is like ruined, and you know, it's just sad if you waste that much paint. So the first thing I'm going to actually do is take the brown at the bottom. It's going to be brown, but I'm going to take and just kind of squiggle. There's no correct term for this. I'm just going to squiggle a bunch of yellow on here for the texture. Okay, and I want this to kind of just look like beach and sand and rocks. So now I'm going to take the brown. I know this is going to seem kind of weird, but I'm going to take the brown and I'm going to kind of put where I want the darkest brown on there first. So I'm kind of wiping my brush off onto the paper. And then I'm going to start to swirl it into the yellow, which is going to kind of make a nice tan color. So I have some brown, but now it's also kind of turned into tan. So this is, you know, if a lot of people at your table are doing the same thing, you may have to just take turns for just a minute. And then you can always get a little bit more on your brush, kind of do the same thing until they kind of meet in the middle. Okay, so there's my sand. Alright, now I'm going to do where the water is coming in, and I'm going to use baby blue for that. And I want this texture to be like crashing waves. And if you ever see waves crashing onto the shore, there's kind of like a lighter edge where the water is hitting, because it's kind of making like sort of a foam. And if a little bit of that brown gets on my brush, it's no big deal. It kind of mixes in and creates another tone. There's a little bit of the darker blue on my brush. I don't care. I think that looks okay. So it's kind of creating variations within the waves that I don't mind, that I think look okay. So just going to kind of do that. Okay. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, your seal's going to cover a lot of this up. So, you know, don't get too wrapped up in getting it a certain way. Now at the top, you could use green and blue, or you could use purple and blue. And here's what I mean by that. You can take a little bit of one color and just kind of spread it onto your paper like this. Just kind of put it on there. And then whenever you add your other color on top, then it's going to kind of blend into that too. And you're going to kind of get a mixture of color. Instead of it just being like solid blue, you're going to get a little bit of a variation, which is kind of cool. So I'm just going to take this, put it on there, blending it all together. Okay, cue the fast music. Okay, now I want to be careful that I don't mess up all the white down here at the bottom, but I'm working kind of quickly because I want to, while this is still wet, I want to kind of mix the little bit of white that's on there upwards into the darker blue, so that you can see that there's sort of like a, kind of like where it fades from really dark to lighter, and kind of like an ombre effect. And then while that light blue's on my brush, I'm just going to kind of work it back in for the waves up here. So that's really kind of a cool way to create a painting. As you can see, it doesn't take that long. You just want to be careful, you know, if you're using a really light color, like the baby blue, I would want to be careful not to get a whole lot of dark blue on it and then put it back into the jar, because then that could contaminate the whole jar. If you're worried about it mixing, which I hope you do worry about this mixing, but let's say you decide to come up here and do a little bit of this, little bit of waves up here. It probably won't hurt it if it's just a tiny bit, but if a lot gets on your brush, you can just kind of wipe it off before you stick it back in the jar. That's an easy way that you can clean that. Alright, now for my favorite part. This is the ocean spray. Hopefully this will make it look really like it's, you know, the ocean's crashing and there's like the spray of the water. I'm going to give you, okay, maybe I'm not going to let you do this. It depends on how your class is acting. But I have this little... it's like a spray bottle of white, and if you're being really good, I might let you spray your own paper. But if it's crazy at the end and everyone's just rushing to get their papers put away, then I'll be the sprayer, and as you walk by me to the drying rack, I'll take it and give it a little squirt of ocean spray. I know, it's so cool. It's really awesome. And then you would pick up your whole picture, and you'll take it over to the drying rack. Your fingers, when you pick it up, they may get just a little bit of paint on them as you're carrying it. That's fine. You'll walk over, you'll slip it in at the lowest shelf. I kind of showed you the drying racks last time, and I have a little card that will tell you where your class's painting should go, and so you'll slip that into the drying rack. You can kind of just, there's no wrong way to do this. You might think in your mind that you want to create a picture where you can sort of see land way in the distance and the sky is above that, and so he's coming up out of the ocean. You might just want to do something to where you've got water at the bottom and then the rest is just sky, so maybe like there's nothing in between. Or you can kind of do, like on my example here, I sort of just did like all water with maybe just, there's not even a horizon line, like who knows if that's sky or what that is. So this one is really like a really textured mixed sort of picture. But you're going to do this one basically the same way as I did this beachy one. If you're doing the orca, you're not going to want to do the bottom like this, like where the sand, because your orca is going to be in deep water, way out in the ocean. And if you try to put sand and it's like he's jumping out of the sand, that doesn't make any sense. So when you're doing the orca picture, you're going to have to pretty much use all like sky. You know, if you do include any land, it's going to sort of be in the middle of your picture because of where, you know, it is way in the distance. And I have some pictures, if this doesn't make sense to you, and I can show them to you. I have them actually posted on the bulletin board. You can look back at them. There's a book cover that has an orca, he's kind of coming up, and then there's like a little bit of a horizon back there. Okay, so for this picture, I'm going to basically do the same thing. I'm going to put it on fast mode, but I just want you to see one more time how you would put a little bit of color on, and then you would layer it with your main color, and those two colors kind of mix to make a cool texture. So, here we go. I have a little orca, and maybe a smaller one than the one you did, or maybe it's about the same size that most kids did. If you're worried that, you know, your kind of like water line and your sky aren't really in the right spot, you just tell me and I'll let you borrow my little guy that's up there, and you can kind of make sure that you're positioning it right. If I come by and try to give you tips like, ooh, why don't you add some light areas back in, or maybe you could make some puffier clouds up in the sky, you know, the sooner you do that while your paint is wet, the more effect you're going to have, the better it's going to look. You know, there's all kinds of things you can do with a really wet painting like this as far as adding texture. You know, some people, they like to go in with the tip of a brush and even draw a little bit of texture back in so that the white of the paper shows through. If you try that, or if you wanted to add texture to the sand in the first part of the video, you could do that with the tip of your brush. Just be sure you wipe it off before you put it back for the next kid to use. Now this brush is all dirty with purple, so before I put it back in there, I'm going to kind of just clean it off on the edge of my little cover sheet. And that's good enough. And now it should be fine for the next kid. Okay? And just for fun, here's my last little spray here. A little bit of ocean spray. This seal's going to look so good on his painting, and now my whale has a home as well. So, thank you for watching. Good luck.